1st, 2005. This is the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress of the United States in partnership with the Historical Society of Leisure World, Laguna Woods, California. This interview is taking place and being taped by the Video Club of Leisure World. Elvan Whiteleather was born August 22nd, 1918, and he served in the Army. He's being interviewed by Carly Lutzow. Good morning, Elvan. So nice of you to come and have this interview with us today.
Thank you.
Where were you born?
Warsaw, Indiana.
And what was the date again?
August 22nd, 1918.
And did you live there during your growing up years?
I lived there a couple of years, and then we moved next town to it, Winona Lake, Indiana. Lived there until 1926. I did a lot of moving then after that.
You did?
My father was a railroader, so when I was 1926, I was about 8 years old. We went to Dunkirk, Ohio. Then we came back to Indiana, to North Manchester for a while, South Whitley for a while, and then to Effingham, Illinois.
Oh, where did you go to high school?
I went to graduated in Effingham, so the last 3 years were in Effingham.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister. My family lost a boy before that, but my sister Thelma, who now lives in Lincoln, Illinois.
Well, after high school, what did you do?
Well, immediately after high school, I went to University of Illinois 1 year and came back for the summer, but I didn't waste much time. I went to a dime store, Morris 5 and 10, and they hired me as an assistant manager. And I was with them about a year. Then I went to Western Auto, and I managed a Western Auto store up until the time I volunteered for the Army.
When you went into the Army, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
I volunteered to take my year, little darling. That was a time when we could take 1 year and then go back. It didn't work out that way because when December 7th came, I had 9 months and they kept me there. So I was in. And I was in then for 57 months.
When you were in, that is quite a long time. When you went in, where did you have basic training?
I went basic training at Camp Roberts. I backtrack a little. I went from Effingham to Fort Sheridan up in Chicago.
Is that where you were inducted?
That's where I was inducted on March 20th, 1941. Came to Camp Roberts for my 13 weeks training. It was infantry training. And the next spot was San Luis Obispo. I got there on July 3rd, 1941.
So it's still 1941 and you still think you're going to be in for a year. Did you have any specialized area you went into then or just...
Well, aptitudes kind of took me into the engineering part. Kind of interesting how that worked. The Army judged you on what abilities you had. I was pretty good secretarially, but I was very mechanically prompted all the way through my life, and so the engineering was easy for me. Wheels and movements and leverage and things, that was all common for me.
So you went into the Army Engineers, actually?
I went into the Army Engineers. That was 115th Combat Engineers.
Okay, let's go back now. It's still only 1941, and we know what December 7th of 1941 changed, what you were doing?
Well, that changed a whole lot. I was in the 115th Engineers, and that December 7th came. At that particular time, I had switched to the Army Band. There were 8 Army bands in the division. That was the 40th Division, and we were on guard.
Did you play an instrument?
I played an instrument, yes. I played a bass horn and played in the band at that time, and the 8 bands were on guard in San Luis Obispo when the rest of the divisions were deployed all up and down the coast.
So then what happened?
Well, December 7th, then we were on guard for 6 weeks or so. Then we went down to Inglewood and gathered down there for a while. I slept in Bing Crosby's stables, and kind of interesting, but we were down there several months. And then we were transferred from then out of the engineers and I stayed with the band at that time, and we went to Monterey and became Monterey Replacement Center Band.
So your band experience was really very good and quite different.
That came out pretty well. I had played in Illinois football band and
Oh, did
high
you?
school band, and I was pretty active in that area. So yes, it turned out that was a nice area to be in, and we were there for several months in Monterey.
Uh-huh.
As a replacement center.
Did you stay with the band your whole service life, or did you go into the
A
engineers?
good part of it.
Part
Good
of it?
part of it, because we stayed with the band there, and then we got transferred from there to Medford, Oregon, and that was the 41st Division,
Uh-huh.
and we were now became then 398th Air Armed Services Band, separate from them up there, but waiting for something,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed there until we went overseas, and that was in June of 1943.
You went overseas with the band?
With the band. I
With the band.
stayed
And
with the band.
Where did you go the first time?
And the first time we went to New Caledonia.
Uh-huh.
I remember vividly going out under the Golden Gate Bridge and wondering whether I'd ever see it again, you know.
Sure.
We didn't know a lot of things like that. We went out on the USS Grant, a nice President liner. I got to even sleep in real beds.
Weren't you lucky?
I was kind of privileged there. And we had no fresh water, well, mostly salt water showers and things. But we went to New Caledonia. I want to note on the way, one night at dusk, they always brought us up deck at dusk. And we had life preservers on and that sort of thing. And a submarine came up not too far away. And it's a kind of a thrill to see a submarine. Is he friend or foe?
Yes.
And we were way out there in the middle of the Pacific. Turned out he was a friend, obviously.
It was a friend?
It was a friend. We didn't have any more.
Oh, that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yes, it was. And we proceeded then down to past Fiji and Christmas Islands and came into New Caledonia from the south.
Uh-huh. And did you stay there?
We stayed there for about 10 months, and we stayed there in what's called Dumbia Valley, about 15 miles north of Noumea.
Uh-huh.
And I stayed with the band then at that time yet, and we used to play for Army, Navy, Coast Guard, anybody, Marines. Went up to Tontuta, to the airfield, and played up there quite a lot. And it was really a thing. While we were there, our unit built a very, very large hospital. And of course, the band then was band part of the time and hospital builders the rest of the time.
So you really were doing engineering work part of the
I
time?
was doing engineering some of that time
Uh-huh.
then.
That's interesting.
And a kind of a note there, while we were there, an ammunition ship blew up. A horrible explosion. And it blew up a whole area of the pier.
Oh.
Our engineer group was called in immediately, and we replaced that in about 48 hours. We put that pier back.
My, that was fast
General
work.
MacArthur gave us a citation
Did he?
for the quick response we did in rebuilding that pier.
Well, that took a lot of effort, didn't it?
That took a lot of effort. It took our entire regiment. Everybody who could do anything
Uh-huh.
was there to replace that. We also built the road from Dumbia Valley out back to Noumea.
What kind of job did you do within the engineers?
Well, at that time, my primary job was band,
Yes.
but we still built hospital
Uh-huh.
and did painting and everything.
And what rank did you go in as?
Even back in Monterey, I was made a T3.
A teacher.
That's a sergeant
Third class.
with a T above it.
Uh-huh. Did you stay there for very long? You said 10 or 11 months?
We were about 10 or 11 months.
Uh-huh. And then what happened?
And then we got sent to Guadalcanal. And getting to Guadalcanal, we were there after the big combat was there. But we were right near, and I wish I could remember the name of the river, but there was a large hospital there and a river. One of the stories I remember is that there's a little peninsula right there, and that's where they drove the Japanese off, and thousands of them were drowned.
Oh.
They just pushed them off out into the bay, and that was it. That's the way the last of the Japanese in Guadalcanal.
Uh-huh. Well, did you build the hospital, or was it there?
It was built when we were
Uh-huh.
there. But we served it, we did several things there. We mostly then built roads. We were great, as we had done in Noumea, out to Dumbia, we also built roads in Guadalcanal.
And at the same time you were playing the band too?
Yes, yes. And we had some wonderful times. Bob Hope was there, and numerous other shows, and we got the chance to see them. Isaac Stern played violin. We had some very notable people through there, and we had theaters everywhere. So our band would play in the evenings. We worked during the day, then play in the evenings all over the island.
How interesting. You had a unique experience, didn't you?
We had a wonderful time with being able to play for, again, Marines, Navy, whomever, in their theaters.
Did you make any close friends in that time in the band area that you kept on later?
Well, in the band, we were a big family.
I would guess.
I'll go back on that. This band was from Utah. Started up in Ephraim, and Ephraim was a high school band that all joined the National Guard, and the National Guard band was part of the 115th Engineers. That was Utah, Nevada, and California.
Oh, I see.
So we were a big family. And I stayed with them until Guadalcanal, and that's when I made a break then. I want to bring another note. We were one of the best bands in the Pacific, bar none. We had a wonderful band. We had some real skilled people in it. One man used to play with Ted Fiorito, and people that were notable at that time.
Oh, isn't that great?
And but we went across the bay to Tulagi. Admiral Halsey was over there. And we used to go by mailboat over to Admiral Halsey's band, and we put 100 men on the stage. And at 9 o'clock or 9:30 we were supposed to quit, and the guys would be yelling more and more. And so we'd play till 10:30 sometime. We had some wonderful, we'd have jive fives and single acts, and we played marches, we played all kinds of music.
Oh, isn't that great? It gave them, the soldiers there, just a little
recreation. That was their
loved.
entertainment. We were the entertaining group that way.
And they really needed it, didn't
Yes. So that's when then, after that, I broke away from the band and went back to my 353rd Engineers over in the Russell Islands.
Okay.
Now, they were building things over there also. I ran all kinds of machinery. They had concrete mixers and things. I shoveled gravel. I did everything. And we were there probably 6-8 weeks after I joined. A Dr. Stelzenmuller was instrumental in having me go over there. And from there we went down to the New Hebrides. Now, in the New Hebrides, we did what the CBs did also. We cleaned up the island. We packed up all the barracks. We shipped them up north. Who knows where they went. But we cleaned up the island, and that was our job in the New Hebrides.
Is this right after the war was over, or during the war?
Oh, that was right during it.
Right during it?
This would have been in early part of 1944, early. And so we spent a lot of time retrieving things, as I say, tearing down barracks, putting them together, bulldozing things down, just everything. We cleaned up the island so that it was now back to something of a normal, because at that time everybody was moving north. Now, we knew even when we were in Guadalcanal, our schedule was set up to go to Tokyo. We knew the process was set up. That's where we were going ultimately. And I never got there, but the plan was there, because at that time then I was now in heavy construction engineering. I left the combat part, and we were in a different organization. 353rd Engineers were heavy construction, big trucks, bulldozers, everything. We were heavy. And so we would have been a secondary unit if we'd gone into Tokyo. Effectively, when somebody lands there, we would have gone in to do the building and fixing which never occurred, thank
It's
goodness.
never- What did your family think about you being involved in all this during the time? Were
Like
they-
everybody, they hated to have their son far away, and we had a slick little thing then. Dad was kind of initiated the thing. He would write in letters about certain things. See, we couldn't tell him where we were.
Oh, that's right.
Lots of times, you couldn't tell where you were. But he'd come up with little things, and I would answer him according to, as he said, New Caledonia. He'd call it something else,
Yeah.
and then I would answer that. So they knew where I was. The family was very, much like all families, they were interested in their son, and whether you get back, you know, it's, I think of the war that's going on now, the Iraq situation. They don't know. Lots of them will get back, lots of them won't, unfortunately.
Yes, and I'm sure that that was the case during the World War II.
It was a different kind of a war. Jungle fighting. World War II was a total different thing from Vietnam, from Korea. It was a tough war. Lots of jungle fighting. I never really got into combat. I was in, this comes on a little later, then I went from New Hebrides, then I went to the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
Now going up there, we went by Cebu. I was within 10 miles of the fighting lines there. We got a get-together band on board ship. Fellows I'd never had seen before, from New Jersey, from wherever. We played on board ship
Oh, did
going
you?
to the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
And at that time I was playing string bass then. And we had times we'd go out to hospitals and play hospitals for all the injured people there. And Cebu was a tough place, beautiful city, but we were close to battle lines there.
And it's where exactly?
Philippines.
In the Philippines.
That's the first place. And I wish I could remember the names of the ships and things like
Oh,
that.
that's
It'd be
okay.
fun.
But it was in the
But
Philippines.
it was that was my first landing in the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
Then from there we went to Zamboanga, which is just not far southeast of Manila. We stayed there and we played again, hospitals. And this is just a get-together band, about 6 or 7 of us
Uh-huh.
that never seen each other before and played anything anybody wanted to play.
Well, isn't that great?
And
I'm
it-
sure you brought a lot of joy to people who just didn't have any kind
Unbelievable.
of entertainment.
Unbelievable. On the other hand, we saw some people who seriously hurt that were never smiled. They couldn't make them smile to save because they were hurt.
Yeah.
They were hurt. I played for a hospital ship in New Caledonia one time, the Hope, and they brought a bunch of them down, and they brought them off the ship. And some of them that were not on stretchers had to be led off. They didn't know they were even on land. It's serious how
Very horrible.
horrible situation.
Yeah.
And that was our job, though, to play entrance, get them back.
How did you feel about that? Was that
It wasn't,
emotional?
it wasn't me.
You were very.
That's the only thing.
Uh-huh.
You never knew whether you were going to make it through another day or not, no matter where you were, because if nothing else, planes came over.
Uh-huh.
I saw planes that were enemy planes. I saw times that planes would go out, especially in Guadalcanal. I saw planes go out. There'd be 5 planes go out every morning at 7 o'clock. And sometimes there were 5 planes come back. Sometimes there were 1.
Oh.
And they would go up to New Britain and places. They didn't all make it back. You know, that was life. Every day you didn't know whether or not you were going to be there the next day or not, even when you thought you were in rather safe places.
Yeah.
Surprises came.
Well, you obviously were able to cope with it, though, or did you just?
I'm here.
You're here to tell the story.
I'm here.
Were you ever injured?
No, never was injured.
Good.
I had good fortune there.
Yeah.
And of course, I was back in the engineers all that time now. And I was back in the engineers when we got to the Philippines. Now there we built, our engineer group built prison camp #1. And we had Japanese coming in every day, by the hundred sometimes. And at that time I went in, I was, even high school, was able to do drafting. And so I would go out and pick up the surveyors' reports and come back and plot them. We had to do things in triplicate lots of times,
Yeah.
draw all kinds of things. But I plotted all this stuff on drawing board. And that was my job pretty much after I hit the Philippines. I spent, again, I was playing in a guitar band.
You did both all the time,
just
didn't
because, just because we played 2 or 3 nights a week.
Uh-huh.
But my main job was to do all this layout work and drafting, drawing, whatever. That's what I did the entire time I was in the Philippines then.
Well, it looks like you had a dual career,
I did.
and that I bet it made life a lot more interesting doing it
You
that
had
way.
to hunt, yes, you had to hunt things to do, you know. I'm not a book reader. I didn't read then, but when you weren't on duty, there wasn't much to do to listen. I had a little radio about that big.
Uh-huh.
I used to listen to people sing and things on the radio. We listened quite a lot. Tokyo Rose, we used to hear her, and we used to listen quite a lot on radio at night. But we had only radio for entertainment. Those days we didn't have all wonderful television and things.
Yeah, it was before that.
Yes.
What happened next after the Philippines?
Well, that was about it. I was in Quezon City
Uh-huh.
some of the time. I also was out at a place called Canlubang, which was about 40 miles southeast of Manila. And that's where I did a lot of work then, again, for the prison camp. Canlubang was a sugar estate. When the Japanese had it, they used the sugar for alcohol. And when we got there, we turned it all around and used it for other purposes. But the sugar estate out there was kind of, and I used to go to the markets. The Philippine markets were wonderful. Fruits and vegetables, unbelievable. Some of them you couldn't use them because they used human feces for fertilization a lot, so we couldn't eat a lot of things like that. But they were interesting, just like our farmers market here.
Uh-huh.
It was very interesting to go to them. And I got acquainted with the family, the Villegas. I've often wondered what they are. They had a little girl, at that time probably 7 or 8, Gloria. She later came to Chicago, and she got in contact with me a couple of times, and at another 2 or 3 times we tried to get together, didn't quite get it done. I've often wondered about her. She had a brother, Vicente, and he got involved with a soap company, and I can't think, he was in Cincinnati, but he came to this country also. Families there were wonderful. We played with the kids, you know, we loved the kids, and we brought them food. You know, they didn't have all the food that so we come from the mess hall with a tray full of food for them.
Uh-huh.
And rather than dump it in the trash, we'd bring it back to them.
Oh, good.
So
And-
go ahead.
And that young girl grew up and contacted you when she was in this country.
And she got here into Chicago. Gloria contacted me. We just never quite got together. She would now be 60 years old,
Yeah.
you know. I wouldn't pass up a chance if I get a hold of her yet, but
Uh-huh.
I don't know whether I ever will. But yes, we made friends with people all through, even back in New Caledonia to start. Everything was friendship one way or another. The cooks knew how to go out and hunt eggs. We didn't have eggs, we had dried eggs.
Mm-hmm.
We had dried milk, which makes me think. I had a goat.
Uh-huh.
A little goat was owned, I think, by, I think a nurse had the goat. And I happened to walk back from the swimming hole one day, and picked up this little goat about so big and brought it home. Nanny used to be quite an entertaining person. She'd go up way up on the hills, and I'd say, "Yeah," and she'd yell back at me, and she'd come back and run. And I used to stoop over, and she'd jump up on my back, curl my shoulders. When she got about 40 pounds, those little hooves kind of dug in. I had to quit that. But we did that out in front of the theater for people to watch us.
Yeah.
But I had a goat, and so many things that I think back. There's hundreds of things. I picked up a whale's vertebra one time like this, and I had it for a while. And what do you know? Somebody wanted it worse than I did, and it disappeared one time. But we had to make a life for ourselves, no matter what. Even you work all day, and these things just, you had to do something to come at night. We had movies. We had a lot of movies, though.
Did you?
And so at least 3-4 nights a week we'd see a movie. We were updated new things. So we had, we did have our entertainment that way.
Well, it seems like they tried to keep you somewhat entertained, but mostly you had to figure it out for yourself.
Sure. Makes me think down back to Guadalcanal, the Kinagawa Maru was a ship. Iron Bottom Bay is right between Guadalcanal and Tulagi, and there are all thousands of ships in there yet, or hundreds, I guess. But they're all down there. American ships are strung all through it. Kinagawa Maru beached itself before it sank, and we went on board that, and that's probably 6-7 miles to the northwest from the hospital that I talked about.
Well, you were in it a long time. How, you said 57 months?
27 months in the States, 30 months in the Pacific.
Did you have any citations or ribbons or anything they say?
Yeah, I have several ribbons. Several. Only one battle star, but that's fine. But yes, but I didn't do anything personal that was outstanding.
Sounds like you did a lot of things that were necessary, though.
You know, this is something that you have to figure. Some people had to do the fighting, but it takes a whole bunch of support groups. Everything from telecommunications of different kinds of things. There's just a background of people that have to support the fighting crew.
Yes, that's very true, and they're just as necessary.
And sometimes there are people who did all kinds of things, never got notability about it at all, never got any really citations, as you say, because they were just out there doing the work.
Support groups,
and engineers were particularly, Seabees were like that, you see. Seabees were Navy construction people. And it took a lot of people out there in the Navy, but it took a lot of support people out there to do the other work, to build wharfs and build things. And
that's right.
And we used to go into, I think, a ship's tender down in New Caledonia. We used to go on that. Oh, the name of that.
Oh, that's all right.
It slips up. But yes, we had a real experience. I can't say that I'd want to do it again, but you know, at that time, you did. You wanted to do what you could do.
You wanted to do.
Yes.
You wanted to be a support some way.
Yes.
Yes, that was a very patriotic feeling with everyone that was involved in World War II.
Absolutely. And at home, they had the gold stars hanging out. Parents, everybody talked about their people in service, and there were a lot of people, a lot of millions of people out there. I lost some friends out there that I used to be in high school with. I ran track, and some of them didn't come back.
Yeah.
It's still the luck of the Irish, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, when the war ended, were you still out in the Philippines, or?
Well, I got there. See, Okinawa and all, or the atomic bomb ended everything about August, and then I I had 87 points.
You had more than enough, didn't you?
That gave me a chance to come back. So I got back then November 19th to Rockford, Illinois, and that was Camp Grant. And I was let out on November, and I got on the, oh, by the way, I brought my bass fiddle back with me.
Did you really?
We had taken one, our unit, somebody had taken one over there, and so when we got ready to come back, I had almost a new bass fiddle, and they said, well, I went into Lieutenant Carosa, and I said, I'd like to take that home with me. And he let me know I'd been standing in the sun too long. And I said, no, you know, what are you going to do with it? He says, I don't know. Take it. So he wrote a note that it was my possession. And so I got on the ship and put that on first, and then my barracks bag went on next.
That's kind of a big item to carry
It was
around, isn't it?
big item. But I did get that back to Rockford, Illinois, and got it on the train, and got back from there to Chicago, and it was the middle of the night almost to get over to Illinois Central, and I went back south down to Effingham, Illinois, where my parents met me about 4 or 5 in the morning, and again, the bass fiddle came first.
I was going to say the bass fiddle was with you, right?
But I got home the day before Thanksgiving in 1945.
Wonderful.
Some of the original members that I had been with didn't get there. 4 of us got in on that ship to come back. By the way, we came back on the USS Mexico, which is a converted banana boat. And we came, of course, back up around Alaska and down. Tried to get in San Francisco, and they were having dock strikes. So we came on down to Los Angeles. More dock strikes, we couldn't get in. So I finally went down to San Diego, and we got off the ship there. And but that's how that whole thing ended. But we were in some heavy waters. I have pictures. By the way, I was a photographer, kind of.
Were you?
I had to watch it. I was a supply sergeant some of the time, and I had control of the cameras. But we usually couldn't use them, but once in a while we could. I have pictures of natives in New Caledonia. I have pictures, in fact, just this morning, I was holding Yvette. She was naked as a little jaybird, about probably 6 months old. And we went up there on R&R to Wailu, up on the other side of the island. And we used that sort of thing quite a lot to R&R to enjoy what we did. So, and I have taken lots of pictures of all of them. I have many, many pictures. So after I got out of the service in Rock Island, back to Effingham, that was it then.
Well, you not only had the band experience, you had a photography.
I have lots of pictures.
You kept yourself pretty busy, didn't you?
Yes.
I think that was very good.
And I have only 50,000 slides.
Oh, that just a few.
A lot of them are the islands and things. It's really enjoyable to look at them sometimes.
Sure. When you got out of service, what did you do when you got home?
I went home, and I had been a manager of Western Auto Stores, and I went to Warsaw, Indiana to see if I could find a location, maybe start a store. Dad took me there, and we didn't find a location on Saturday. Went back on Sunday. I sat down and was writing a letter, and he said, "What are you doing?" "I'm writing a letter." "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "This is an application for optometry school."
Oh, how?
So I wrote an application to Northern Illinois College of Optometry in Chicago, and almost before they got the letter, I was up there and got myself in school, and I went through my 4 years, at that time, 4 years education for optometry, and came out and went to Warsaw, Indiana again. My mother had moved back there, and then I went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and practiced optometry for 53 years.
How did you decide to go into optometry?
Down the bottom of the barracks bag was a little letter that Mom one time went to the optometrist and said, I wonder if Elvin might like to do this. And he said, well, he might. I'll see that he gets some information. So he sent me the optometry school in Los Angeles and the one in Chicago, Northern Illinois College of Optometry. He sent them, and they just kind of stayed in the bottom of the barracks bag for 2 years while I was overseas. And when I came back, in fact, I had gone to, on the way, just before I boarded to come back, I went to a little library and checked it out. I thought, you know, this might be something. So I came back, and it was, I have to say, optometry was good to me.
Did you use the GI Bill to go to school?
Yes,
Yes.
I used that. I don't know how we could have gotten, I had $65 a month.
Oh.
I could live on that, in fact, you know. Lunches were 35 cents and dinners were 45, and 10 more cents for pie and ice cream, you know. Those days back in the 40s were unusual.
Pretty amazing, huh?
Pretty amazing how different the economy was then,
Yeah.
and how it is now even.
Were you married before you got out of service or after?
I was married in 1950.
Oh, you were?
I was married in 1950. I graduated in school in September 48 and practiced in Fort Wayne and married Jean July 1st. In fact, we will have 55 years next week here, July 1st.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
We had 3 boys. I have a son who has a business here in Ridge Route, here in Laguna Hills, and have another son who's a lawyer in Los Angeles, and a third son took over my practice of optometry in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Do you have grandchildren too?
No grandchildren.
Well, you never give up.
They haven't done that yet for us.
Do you get back to Fort Wayne to see them?
We're going to be back there probably within some weeks. We go back about four weeks sometime and visit. I have a sister in Lincoln, Illinois. Jean has a sister in Madison, Wisconsin, Grand Rapids, Mishawaka, Indiana, and we'd like to visit them during the week and then be with my son over the weekend.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to be doing that probably very soon. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have a brother-in-law who has cancer, and we were kind of a little afraid of my having to get back.
You want to be sure to
him
see
some
him.
of these days too.
Stay
we
around
want
for
to see
that.
George.
When did you move to Leisure World?
3 years ago, we got here about the 15th of September, 3 years ago. And we rented first for a little while, and now we're over between Gate 5 and 6, Ronda Granada, and like it. Some people say they have a hard time being acquainted. We can step out the door, in 5 minutes there's somebody going by talking to us. It's just like we know the whole neighborhood.
Isn't that nice?
It's a delightful place to live.
Did you join any service organizations?
American Legion.
Here in Leisure World?
Here in Leisure World. I really did. I was in Post 296 in Fort Wayne, and then I quit because when you go, everything was just drink beer, and the house was so full of smoke you couldn't see. So I quit after a while. I bowled with them for 10 years and that, but I quit American Legion. I was also with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and here, though, I've rejoined American Legion and playing, I hope, a good part with that. I'm enjoying the fellows here.
Isn't that nice? That's wonderful.
And that in Kiwanis. I now will soon have 51 years of Kiwanis perfect attendance.
Wow,
that's a little bit different from most, but comes November 8th, I will have 51 years.
Well, I hope they will recognize that.
Well, they did the 50.
They did the 50.
I have a badge, a little thing. I have everything for that. I'm very strong in Kiwanis, so it's an outstanding organization. This one here puts out about $15,000 or $18,000 every year for scholarships.
Wonderful.
We do a lot of support in the community. Kiwanis Club is an outstanding organization.
Wonderful.
here, and
All
of course it was back in Indiana. That's the international headquarters at Indianapolis. And international, and we're in 87 countries. Kiwanis is a major function,
Yes.
and they take care of children
Yeah.
in all kinds of ways. We have an iodine deficiency situation. There are countries who have, everybody has goiter,
Yeah.
no more, because we've had supplied them with iodized salt. And so I've enjoyed Kiwanis.
Well, I think that's a good thing to be involved in, and you've obviously have contributed a lot.
That and the American
Sounds like
Legion.
everywhere you've been, you've contributed a lot, so that's a
I've tried.
good life.
I got to be president of Indiana Optometry. I've done a lot. I've been participating in everything, and I enjoy it.
Very good. Is there anything else you want to add about your service experience, or have we pretty well covered it?
I think we've done a pretty good job here.
When you left the service, what rank were you then? Do you recall?
I was T3,
Yes,
yes, I just never got beyond that.
Yeah, but that
Even
was
when I switched units, it didn't.
technical
So I
thing.
was T3.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Elvin. It was a very good story you had to tell about your experiences. Quite a bit different than some of the others.
Well, I just did what I did.
That's
And
right.
I enjoyed it, and there are thousands of stories, you know. Listen to all of them. These fellows all have stories.
Right.
And I thank you very much for the
Well,
opportunity.
thank you again.
Thank you.